the University of Washington just won its 7th straight Apple Cup. And if you don't know, the Apple Cup is the annual game. It's the name given to the annual game between Washington State University and the University of Washington. You know, back in the day, Washington was only known for its, really best known for its production of apples. Now, you know, of course, when I think of Washington, I think of Microsoft, I think of Amazon, but back in the day it was Apple, so that's called the Apple Cup. And at this point, it's pretty clear, after 7 years in a row winning, UW, University of Washington, we'll call it UW. UW is simply a far better football program than Washington State, from top to bottom, from head coach to the recruits they bring in to facilities. Here's a real factor too, by the way. When you want to bring in recruits, I think your head coach matters and your location matters. And I used to go to school at Washington State. I'm weird. I found Pullman to be I didn't love it. I would never want to move back there. But for me, I'm an introvert. I don't like traffic. I would rather, honestly, if I had to choose and internet speeds were fast enough, I would probably choose Pullman over Seattle because it's quieter. I hate traffic, and Seattle has awful traffic. But if you're an 18-year-old kid, where would you rather go to school? Cornfields? There's nothing out there. You ever been to Pullman, Washington? Not many people have. There's nothing there. Pullman, Washington, if you're an 18-year-old kid from Los Angeles, or would you rather go to Seattle, Washington, where there's a lot of stuff to do. It's pretty. There's some coastal water. It's wonderful. I'm weird. I think I might choose Pullman, but most people are not like me. Most people want the big city and the life that you could have as an 18-year-old kid in Seattle. That matters. Now, also, the bigger question is, who would you rather play for? The kind of goofy pirate, kind of a curmudgeon, kind of cranky Mike Leach? Or would you rather play for Chris Peterson? Chris Peterson is, a clean cut. He's got a lot of energy. He's won before. He won at Boise State. He's winning now. He dominates Washington State. If you had to choose between Mike Leach or Chris Peterson, I think you'd be crazy not to choose Chris Peterson. I don't understand who chooses Washington State over UW. And here's the deal about Mike Leach. He's great for business. He really is. He sells tickets. He scores a lot of points. He wins enough football games. He gives really interesting quotes to the media. It's like, Washington State fans love it. Mike Leach's weird, crazy tirade and rants about stuff. Now, personally, I'm not a big fan of Mike Leach. When I was a kid, I was like 8 years old, and I saw the points they put up and the way they threw the ball. I was like, man, I love Mike Leach. Of course I would want to play for Mike Leach. And literally, I'm not even kidding. Ask my dad. When I was a kid, my dream school was to play for Texas Tech and Mike Leach. And as I grew up and I started to realize, there's more than just points and more than just numbers and statistics. What else goes on? Well, I think, his curmudgeoniness and his gruffness, I don't think I'd want to work with that. And let me tell you, as a quarterback, Mike Leach's meetings would drive me nuts. I couldn't handle it. He wastes ungodly amounts of time talking about nothing. You go to a film session, you're there for 4 hours, you spend an hour talking about football. Sounds horrible to me. I wouldn't want to do that. Here's the truth. Mike Leach is in a tiny media market. There's 30,000 people in Pullman, Washington. The people interviewing him they're not the best in their business. He's dealing with what is it called? The Spokane Tribune? No offense to them. That's not the same media market that Nick Saban deals with. That's not the same, oh my gosh. That's not what you deal with in Los Angeles with USC. No, again, no offense to the Spokane Tribune. I mean, no offense to them. It's just not the LA Times. It's a very different level of media. You can dominate that media market. So Mike Leach works in a really small media market, and he's got a fan base at Washington State that has low expectations. They're happy to win 6 games. You take Washington State's fan base to a bowl game every year, hey, we're happy. We're satisfied. That's enough for us. Give them 6 wins a year. They've been to 5 bowl games in a row. That's good enough for Coug fans. Mike Leach should never, ever, ever leave Washington State. If you went to a bigger program with higher expectations or a bigger media market with a tougher media circuit, if you went to Tennessee, there was rumors a while back that he would be the Tennessee head coach. He would struggle in Tennessee. In the SEC, man, I don't think his brand of football and his way of coaching would work. There's a very, very telling quote to me after last year's Apple Cup. They've won 7 in a row, UW has, but after the 6th one in Pullman, UW defensive coordinator Jimmy Lake gave this quote. He said, "It makes it really easy to game plan when an offense does the same thing every year. Knowing what I read about the head football coach," he means Mike Leach, "knowing what I read about Mike Leach, hopefully he remains here for a long time." I don't expect a lot of people nationally to understand what I'm about to say next, but if you're a person who's watched Washington State and UW and watched the Apple Cup consistently over the years, as I have, I've watched, all of them for the last, I don't know how many years. I got a sense of deja vu on Friday when I watched the Apple Cup. It felt like the exact same game I've been watching for years. 2 years ago, Luke Falk went into Seattle, and the offensive line really struggled. UW only brought a 3-man rush. They dominated. Luke Falk struggled, and it felt like exactly the same game again on Friday. University of Washington brought a 3-man rush, 3 guys after the quarterback. They dropped 8 into coverage. Nobody's open. Quarterback holds onto the ball a little too long. And Washington State's 5 offensive linemen at times really struggled to block 3 guys. 3 on 5, you got to win. Washington State often could not. Now, frankly, I'm not a big fan of Anthony Gordon. I'm not a fan is the wrong word there. I'm not a big believer. I think he's a fine dude. I like nothing against the guy. I don't believe in him as a quarterback in the NFL. And I got a ton of messages and a ton of comments. I made a video saying Anthony Gordon is fool's gold. And, of course, it's a very provocative title. And a lot of people were upset. And then after the game happened, a lot of people were like, "Oh, you're right, Zach. Anthony Gordon, blah, blah, blah." Actually, oddly enough, this game was not entirely his fault. The loss that took place, some of it's coaching, man. You can't overcome a coach who will not adjust. So I don't want to put the Apple Cup entirely on Washington State's quarterback, Anthony Gordon. A lot of people will. I will not. But I do want to stand by a couple things. Number one, Anthony Gordon struggles to read the middle of the field. He really struggles. He gets fooled often by linebackers and safeties, and he misses guys that are open sometimes. There are people in windows against zone coverages that are open. And then there are times where he straight up doesn't see defenders and throws bad interceptions over the middle. So I stand by that. He struggles over the middle. Number 2 is that Anthony Gordon is at his worst. You ever heard of the phrase, he's at his finest when he does blah, blah, blah? No, Anthony Gordon is at his worst when he escapes the pocket, runs around, and extends the play. Bad things happen when he extends the play. Interceptions happen. If you noticed and you watched the Apple Cup, both of his interceptions took place when he was extending a play outside the pocket, tried to throw downfield. Horrible interception both times. And I will never, ever, ever get over this one thing. There's a thing I saw. I broadcasted Utah versus Washington. I've said this so many times now. And when Anthony Gordon was challenged, he knelt down. He gave up. He had a bad attitude. He was sullen. He was alone on the sideline in the game. They were still in the game, and he didn't fight back. Anthony Gordon doesn't do that every time. Against Oregon, against the University of Oregon, he fought back. And against Oregon State, he fought back. But the fact that he's capable of that at Anthony Gordon's lowest moment, he's moping on the sideline alone, not encouraging the guys around him. The fact that he's capable of that, there's no way I draft him. He's off my draft board. No way. There are things I like. For the record, I got to back up. I got to catch myself here. There are things I like about Anthony Gordon. He does things like he'll work from the left all the way back across to the right side of the field. That's rare for a college quarterback to do that. And he's got a good arm. He can make a lot of great throws. He's got really good mechanics. There are things I like about Anthony Gordon. But the problems to me are too glaring. The fact that he can't extend a play. He struggles over the middle of the field. He gave up against Utah. 3 strikes you're out. Those are 3 glaring problems to me, and that's why I don't believe in Anthony Gordon. It's nothing personal, man. I think a lot of people... I think the reason why my video calling him fool's gold didn't land as well, and people thought I was like angry and hate him or something, I think my tone of voice probably came through like I sounded mad. That wasn't my intent. I have nothing against Anthony Gordon. And Connor Neville came over the other day, a former Washington State quarterback, told me why he believes in him. And I hear Connor. Connor and I disagree on that topic. I don't know who's going to be right. But for those reasons, I wouldn't draft Anthony Gordon. I get a lot of questions about him. I think the Apple Cup was another example of his issues.